Shalom, Israel, Most High in Christ. Bless, all praises to the Most High. We made it another week and to another Bible History 101. And I was looking through what we went through last week when we went through a couple weeks ago. And it makes more sense to stay here in the Kings and not jump to the Chronicles, even though it really touches on the same history. We're a bit ahead in the Chronicles. We didn't quite get to where we need to be here in the Kings. So we're going to continue with the Kings and the life of Elisha. And specifically, if you read the title, the days of Jehu. And Jehu was a king over the northern kingdom of Israel. And I got to make sure that there are no technical difficulties. Let's see. Northern kingdom of Israel. Okay, all praises to the Most High. It appears everything is rolling smoothly, so we're going to jump right into it. I don't know where we're going to stop this week. Perhaps the story of Adaliah. I guess we'll that wicked queen over Judah. But we'll just play it by ear. So this is 2 Kings 8:1, picking up where we left off last week. Then spake Elisha unto the woman whose son he had restored to life, saying, Arise, and go thou in thine household, and sojourn wheresoever thou canst sojourn. For the Lord hath called for a famine, and it shall also come upon the land 7 years. Right, so Elisha was prophesying that a 7-year famine was coming. He said, look, you've always been good to me. That's why, that's why I revealed to you the blessing of your son that was coming. That's why, the Lord raised him from the dead. So I'm warning you, get out of the land because it's about to be a drought here. It's about to be a famine here for 7 years. All right. Verse 2, and the woman arose and did after the saying of the man of God, and she went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Philistines 7 years. Right. So that would be in Gaza. And it came to pass at the 7 years end that the woman returned out of the land of the Philistines, and she went forth to cry unto the king for her house and for her land. All right. So I mentioned that the Philistines' land is Gaza. Let me just pull up the map just to prove it. We like the maps here at Bible History 101. All right. Let's see the territories divided. This is a pretty good one. Not great, but it's a pretty good one. As you see, Philistia right here. That's present day Gaza. All right. And I believe Ashdod is Tel Aviv. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping on that one. But there's the land of the Philistines, right? What we call, there's Gaza right there. I know it's a little small. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, there's Gaza right there. So that's the land of the Philistines, modern day Palestine, all right? Don't save, let's go back. Verse 4. And the king talked with Gehazi, the servant of the man of God, saying, Tell me, I pray thee, all the great things that Elisha had done. And it came to pass, as he was telling the king how he had restored a dead body to life, that behold, the woman whose son he had restored to life cried to the king for her house and for her land, right? Because she had to abandon her house and her land, which was, I believe, in Issachar, if I remember correctly, so that she could escape the famine. So she could escape the famine. All right. And Gehazi said, My lord, O king, this is the woman, and this is her son, whom Elisha restored to life. And when the king asked the woman, she told him. So the king appointed unto her a certain officer, saying, Restore all that was hers, and all the fruits of the field, since the day that she left the land, even until now. All right, so she got everything back. She didn't lose nothing in this because she took heed to the word of God at the mouth of Elisha. All right, verse 7. And Elisha came to Damascus, and Ben-Hadad the king of Syria was sick. And it was told him, saying, The man of God is come hither. And the king said unto Hazael, Take a present in thy hand, and go meet the man of God, and inquire of the Lord by him, saying, Shall I recover of this disease? So Hazael would be like second to the king, right? So like captain of his army, all that kind of stuff. So Ben-Hadad sends Hazael to Elisha to say, what's going to happen? Am I going to be healed from this disease, right? So Hazael went to meet him and took a present with him, even of every good thing of Damascus, 40 camels burden, and came and stood before him and said, Thy son Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, hath sent me to thee, saying, Shall I recover of this disease? Right. So not only did he come asking him is Ben-Hadad going to, heal? Is he going to recover? But also, 40 camels. The camels are loaded down with like chests and crates and things on top. 40 camels worth of stuff. But Elisha wasn't concerned with the material things. We learned that last week. Verse 10. And Elisha said unto him, Go say unto him, Thou mayest certainly recover. Howbeit the Lord has showed me that he shall surely die. Right? So Elisha said, You can go tell him he's going to recover, but I know that he's going to die. And he settled his countenance steadfastly until he was ashamed. And the man of God wept. Right? So Elisha, remember, Elisha had that double portion of the Spirit that was on Elijah. And if you can recall, Elijah was calling down meteors from heaven. He was so endowed with the Spirit. So Elisha, even more so, a double portion of that Spirit. Elisha knows most things that are going to happen in his lifetime. All right, some things the Lord hid from him, but most things Elisha already knows before it happens. All right. So now he's crying. Verse 12. And Hazael said, Why weepeth my Lord? And he answered, Because I know the evil that thou wilt do unto the children of Israel. Their strongholds wilt thou set on fire, and their young men wilt thou slay with the sword, and will dash their children and rip up their women with child. And Hazael said, But what? Is thy servant a dog, that he should do this great thing? Hazael is like, I wouldn't plan on doing none of that stuff. And Elisha answered, The Lord has showed me that thou shalt be king over Syria. Right? And there's that old saying that absolute power corrupts absolutely. So Hazael may have been a good dude initially, but once he got that throne, he started doing wicked things. All right. Verse 14. So he departed from Elisha and came to his master, who said to him, What said Elisha to thee? And he answered, He told me that thou shouldest surely recover. And dude didn't even lie. Elisha did say those words, but he's certainly dealing falsely. And it came to pass on the morrow that he took a thick cloth and dipped it in water and spread it on his face so that he died. And Hazael reigned in his stead. We've all seen the movies or the TV shows or whatever where somebody takes the pillow and suffocates the person. Well, this guy pretty much waterboarded him. Hazael pretty much waterboarded Ben-Hadad so that he could become king. And we've read about Jehoram before, but we'll briefly recap. Jehoram's wicked reign in verse 16. And in the 5th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat being then king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, began to reign. Right, and this is what we see. It can get a bit confusing here in this era because of the alliance between the northern and the southern kingdom, starting during the days of Jehoshaphat and Ahab. A lot of the sons are named the same because they pretty much had a shared culture, and it wasn't in the Lord, but it was a shared culture of like pagan idolatry. And that's how the couple of things that you would do back in the day to show a political alliance or allegiance with another country, with another state, was to name your child something of that other country, right, or have similar baby names or whatever. But B, which was far more common, was to give your daughter over to that country to marry, or like the king's daughter to that king's son, for example, right? And that's what happened. Both of those things happen here, but in this alliance with the northern and southern kingdom of Israel. Of course, it's not in righteousness because they're still divided, they're still pagan, but that alliance was still there. So, in the days of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, became, or Joram, the son of Jehoshaphat, became king over Judah, right? So they were both named Joram. Two different guys, but named the same. 30 and 2 years old was he when he began to reign. And he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, as did the house of Ahab. For the daughter of Ahab was his wife. You see that right there? So, the daughter of Ahab was the wife of Joram. And this is Adaliah. All right? And he did evil in the sight of the Lord. Verse 19. Yet the Lord would not destroy Judah for David, his servant's sake, as he promised him to give him always a light and to his children. Right? But we're going to see how the Lord was not that merciful to the house of Ahab, how he wipes them out. All right. In his days, verse 20, in his days, in the days of Joram, king of Judah, Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah and made a king over themselves. So Joram went over to Zaire and all the chariots with him, and he rose by night and smote the Edomites which compassed him about, and the captains of the chariots. And the people fled into their tents. Yet Edom revolted from under the hand of Judah unto this day, right? So that's when so-called white people broke out from under the Israelites, all right? Broke out from under the so-called blacks and Latinos, right? And now these days the roles are reversed. But, that's how it was prophesied to be. And Jacob held hold of Esau's heel from Genesis, right? So, at the same time, right, then Libnah revolted at the same time. Let's see if we can find Libnah on the map. It would be in an area of Judah. Let's see if we can find Libnah. There it goes. OT Israel flat. Like I said last week, I'm coming around to this map because it's got all the different cities. As you see, here's the territory of Judah with a non-specified border. Libnah. Do we see Libnah anywhere? No. It's not even showing. It's not even showing Sierra on here, I don't think. No, it's a Sidon Valley. Yeah, not sure where Libnah is, but it would have been territory of Judah that broke out during the days of Joram that fought for. Oh, here it is, right here, Libnah. Oh, in the area of the Amalekites. Okay, that makes sense. All right, so let's go back. And the rest of the acts of Joram and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? And we read that like a couple of weeks ago. Joram was foolish and wicked. Verse 24. And Joram slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Ahaziah, his son, reigned in his stead. All right. Now, Ahaziah, there's nothing too special about Ahaziah. He's wicked. That's all you need to know. And his mother's name was Adaliah. That's really all you need to know. We'll go through this, but Ahaziah, he doesn't make too much of an impact. Verse 25. In the 12th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, did Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. All right, so here you have Ahaziah the Judite. 20 and 2 years old when he was Ahaziah when he began to reign. He was 22. And he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. So he did not make a very big impact. He reigned 1 year. And his mother's name was Adaliah, the daughter of Omri, king of Israel. You see that right there? So Adaliah was actually a northern kingdom woman. But, like I said, they had that alliance at the time. So Jehoram, king of Judah, married a northern kingdom woman, right? I said the daughter of Omri. Right, so this would be, in the Ahab family. These, I believe, were Ephraimites, modern day Boricua, Puerto Ricans. And he walked in the way of the house of Ahab and did evil in the sight of the Lord, as did the house of Ahab, for he was the son-in-law of the house of Ahab. You see that right there? So that's how intertwined the Israelites were in wickedness at this point, right? The allegiance that they had, worshiping idols, both kingdoms, right? Verse 28, and he went with Joram, the son of Ahab, to the war against Hazael, king of Syria, in Ramoth Gilead. And the Syrians wounded Joram. And King Joram went back to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Syrians had given him at Ramah, when he fought against Hazael, king of Syria. And Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to see Joram, the son of Ahab, in Jezreel because he was sick. All right. So let's keep reading on that. 2 Kings 9:1. Now we get into the title, right? Jehu. And Elisha the prophet called one of the children of the prophets and said unto him, Gird up thy loins, and take this box of oil in thy hand, and go to Ramoth Gilead. All right, when it goes into children of the prophet, it's talking about like and sons of the prophets and things like that. It's talking about like spiritual children, right? So like the same way that Paul called Timothy his child, even though he was not his biological father, he was just raising him up in the truth. So when you see children of the prophets, sons of the prophets, like that could literally be talking about like some of their sons, but most of the time it's talking about, they learned up under them, right? So Elisha told one of the younger prophets, take this box of oil and go to Ramoth Gilead. When thou comest thither, look out there Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, and go in, and make him arise up from among his brethren, and carry him to an inner chamber. Then take the box of oil and pour it on his head, and say, Thus saith the Lord, I have anointed thee king over Israel. Then open the door and flee and tarry not. He said, get out of there. It's about to be a bloodbath. Verse 4. So the young man, even the young man the prophet, went to Ramoth Gilead. And when he came, behold, the captains of the host were sitting. And he said, I have an errand to thee, O captain. And Jehu said, Unto which of all of us? Unto which of all us? And he said, To thee, O captain. Right? So Jehu was already an established military man, right? A man of might, captain of, this portion of the army. And he arose and went into the house, and he poured the oil on his head and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I have anointed thee king over the people of the Lord, even over Israel. And thou shalt smite the house of Ahab thy master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants the prophets, and the blood of all the servants of the Lord at the hand of Jezebel. Right? So God told Ahab, because he had humbled himself, that it wouldn't happen in his days, but guess what? It's happening in his son's days. For the whole house of Ahab shall perish, and I will cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. Right? So him that pisseth against the wall would be men, and him that is shut up is even the disabled, right? Or sick, sickly, whatever. And I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah. And the dog shall eat Jezebel in the portion of Jezebel, and there shall be none to bury her. And he opened the door and fled. Verse 11. Then Jehu came forth to the servants of his Lord, and one said unto him, Is all well? Wherefore came this mad fellow to thee? And he said unto them, Ye know the man and his communication. Right? So he said, Y'all know what it's about. Y'all know what this is. And they said, It is false. Tell us now. They said, We don't know what's going on. And he said, Thus and thus spake he to me, saying, Thus saith the Lord, I have anointed thee king over Israel. Then they hasted and took every man his garment and put it under him on the top of the stairs and blew a trumpet, saying, Jehu is king. Right? So he's like, y'all done put him up to this. They're like, no, we don't know what you're talking about. He's like, well, he told me I was going to be king over Israel. And so they was like, yeah, let's do it. Jehu, we like you, You're one of us. You're the king now. Verse 14. So Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, conspired against Joram. Now Joram had kept Ramoth Gilead, he and all Israel, because of Hazael, king of Syria. Right? So we're getting back to what we just read at the end of the last chapter about that whole battle at Ramoth Gilead that went badly for Jehoram and Ahaziah. It's about to go even worse. But King Joram was returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which Syrians had given him when he fought with Hazael, king of Syria. And Jehu said, If it be your minds, then let none go forth nor escape out of the city to go to tell it in Jezreel. All right. Let's look at Jezreel real quick. It's up here. So Ramoth Gilead is over here. Jezreel is across the Jordan. Where do we got Jezreel? That's the valley of Jezreel. And Jezreel, I think I covered it up right there. Yeah. Right there south of Shunem is Jezreel. I believe Jehu was anointed in Ramoth Gilead, correct? Yes. Yes. All right. So, verse 16. So Jehu rode in a chariot and went to Jezreel, for Joram lay there. And Ahaziah, king of Judah, was come down to see Joram, right? So they were both there conveniently in the same city. Verse 17. And there stood a watchman on the tower in Jezreel, and he spied the company of Jehu as he came, and said, I see a company. And Joram said, take a horseman, and send to meet them. Let him say, is it peace? So there went one on horseback to meet him, and said, thus saith the king, is it peace? And Jehu said, what hast thou to do with peace? Turn thee behind me. And the watchman told, saying, the messenger came to them, but he cometh not again. Right. So you gotta imagine, they send this messenger out because they just come from a battle. So they all they see is just a company riding in. They don't see who it is. They send a messenger, and the messenger is like, hey, are you coming for peace? He's like, no, get out of here. And the dude never comes back. Oh, man. Verse 19, then he sent out a second on horseback, which came to them and said, thus saith the king, is it peace? And Jehu answered, what hast thou to do with peace? Turn thee behind me. And the watchman told, saying, he came even unto them, and cometh not again. And the driving is like the driving of Jehu the son of Nimshi, for he driveth furiously, right? So you wouldn't want that brother behind the wheel. He drive a horse furiously. Oh, man, he's ready. He's ready to go take the kingdom. All right. But, yeah, so they sent a second guy. Never comes back. Oh, wow. So the watchman's like, I kind of looks like Jehu. What's he doing here? Anyway, verse 21. And Joram said, make ready. And his chariot was made ready. And Joram, king of Israel, and Ahaziah, king of Judah, went out, each in his chariot, and they went out against Jehu, and met him in the portion of Naboth the Jezreelite. It came to pass, when Joram saw Jehu, that he said, is it peace, Jehu? And he answered, what peace, so long as the whoredoms of thy mother Jezebel and her witchcrafts are so many? He's like, how can we have peace in the land whenever y'all still in wickedness? Whenever your mom and your house, your family still in wickedness? And Joram turned his hands and fled, and said to Ahaziah, there is treachery, O Ahaziah. And Jehu drew a bow with his full strength and smote Jehoram between his arms. And the arrow went out at his heart, and he sunk down in his chariot. Right, so you gotta think Joram's trying to get away, right? So he's got his back turned to Jehu. Jehu takes out a bow, shoots it, boom, right here, in the middle of the back, between the arms, right? Comes out of his chest right here, and then he just sinks down his chariot. Verse 25. Then said Jehu to Bidkar, his captain, take up and cast him in a portion of the field of Naboth the Jezreelite. For remember how that when I and thou rode together after Ahab his father, the Lord laid this burden upon him. Surely I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth and the blood of his sons, saith the Lord, and I will requite thee in this plat, saith the Lord. Now therefore take and cast him into the plat of ground according to the word of the Lord. Right? So they remember the prophecy that Elijah spoke to Ahab about him taking the field of Naboth, so now his seeds are going to be dying in that field. All right? Because Ahab and Jezebel had Naboth and his family killed, so they could take that. Field from him. All right. Verse 27. But when Ahaziah the king of Judah saw this, he fled by the way of the garden house, and Jehu followed after him and said, smite him also in a chariot. And they did so at the going up to Gur, which is by Ibleam. I don't know if Gur is going to be on here, but I've definitely seen Ibleam. Where is Ibleam? Ibleam is right here. So he didn't make it too far from Jezreel. As you see, Jezreel's right here. Ahaziah made it about that far. Which, on horseback, is pretty far, but in the grand scheme of things, not very far. All right. Which is by Ibleam. And he fled to Megiddo. Oh, he fled to Megiddo. He was shot at Ibleam and fled to Megiddo. So, Megiddo is... Where's Megiddo? I know it's around here somewhere. Okay, Megiddo is north. Yeah, so this is the plain of Megiddo right here. The plain of Megiddo. Is there a city of Megiddo? I don't think so. I think it's just this plain, this valley right here. All right. Let's go back. And died in Megiddo. And his servants carried him in a chariot to Jerusalem and buried him in his sepulchre with his fathers in the city of David. Right, so that was Ahaziah's year-long reign. Like nothing happened too much other than he died, right? He died because of his allegiance with the house of Ahab, all right? Because his mother was of Ahab's family, all right? Verse 29, and in the 11th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, began Ahaziah to reign over Judah. Yeah, we read that last chapter, I believe. Verse 30, and when Jehu was come to Jezreel, Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her face and tied her head and looked out a window, right? So she got real dolled up, got the makeup on, right? Put her head in a headdress. And as Jehu entered in at the gate, she said, had Zimri peace, who slew his master? And he lifted up his face to the window and said, who is on my side? Who? And there looked out to him 2 or 3 eunuchs. And he said, throw her down. So they threw her down. And some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses. And he trode her underfoot. Wow. So these eunuchs, they see the guy who is about to take the kingdom, and they're like, well, we're siding with him. Screw Jezebel. And they throw her down, and then he started stomping on her with the horse. Crazy. Verse 34. And when he was come in, he did eat and drink, and said, go, see now this cursed woman, and bury her, for she is a king's daughter. Right? The king of the Phoenicians, the king of Tyre and Zidon, right? A Canaanite. Verse 35. And they went to bury her, but they found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. Wherefore they came again and told him, and he said, this is the word of the Lord, which he spake by his servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, in the portion of Jezreel shall dogs eat the flesh of Jezebel. And the carcass of Jezebel shall be as dung upon the face of the field in the portion of Jezreel, so that they shall not say this is Jezebel, right? Because all they seen was a skull and hands and feet. Yeah, I mean, you can't really identify who that person is. They knew it was Jezebel because of where she was landed or whatever, but you can't really identify that. All right, 2 Kings chapter 10, I will start with verse 1. And Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria. Samaria was the capital of the northern kingdom, established by, I think, Omri, the dad of Ahab, but Ahab's family. All right, so we see right there, Samaria. They could have been Manassites, I suppose. It could be Ephraim or Manasseh. Regardless, they established Samaria. 70 sons in Samaria. And Jehu wrote letters and sent to Samaria unto the rulers of Jezreel, to the elders, and to them that brought up Ahab's children, saying, now as soon as this letter cometh to you, seeing your master's sons are with you, and there are with you chariots and horses, a fenced city also, and armor, look even out the best and meanest of your master's sons, and set him on his father's throne, and fight for your master's house. But they were exceedingly afraid, and said, behold, 2 kings stood now before him. How then shall we stand? Right? So Jehu said, look, of all those 70 sons, select you the one that you think is the best and the mightiest that can fight for the kingdom, because I'm coming to take it. Right? So everybody there is afraid. Right? They're like, oh, 2 kings. He's already killed 2 kings. He's definitely going to kill us. And he that was over the house, and he that was over the city, the elders also, and the bringers up of the children, sent to Jehu, saying, we are thy servants, and will do all that thou shalt bid us. We will not make any king. Do thou that which is good in thine eyes. Then he wrote a letter the second time to them, saying, if ye be mine, and if you will hearken unto my voice, take ye the heads of the men, your master's sons, and come to me to Jezreel by tomorrow this time. Now the king's sons, being 70 persons, were with the great men of the city, which brought them up. And it came to pass, when the letter came to them, that they took the king's sons and slew 70 persons, and put their heads in baskets, and sent them to Jezreel. Right? So they weren't playing around. They said, we're way more afraid of Jehu than we are these children of Ahab. All right. So, so the word of the Lord could be fulfilled, that all Ahab's house, all that pissed against the wall, were cut off. Right? Literally, heads cut off. All right. Verse 8. And there came a messenger and told him, saying, they have brought the heads of the king's sons. And he said, lay ye them in 2 heaps at the entering in of the gate until the morning. And it came to pass in the morning that he went out and stood and said to all the people, ye be righteous. Behold, I conspired against my master and slew him. But who slew all these? Know now that there shall fall unto the earth nothing of the word of the Lord which the Lord spake concerning the house of Ahab. For the Lord hath done that which he spake by his servant Elijah. So Jehu slew all that remained of the house of Ahab and Jezreel and all his great men and his kinfolk and his priests until he left him none remaining. So anybody who allied themselves with Ahab, they gone. They either had to give allegiance to Jehu or they're gone, right? And the speech that Jehu gave is pretty interesting, where he said, look, you may call me unrighteous for, rising up against people that I worked for, right? My master, the king of Israel and all of his followers, but I didn't kill all these people, right? I didn't kill these people. These heads were sent to me, right? So if you're gonna blame me, you're gonna have to blame everybody else too, right? So that's interesting. He said, look, the word of the Lord gonna be fulfilled with or without me. All right. So yeah, that's real interesting. Verse 12. And he arose and departed and came to Samaria. And as he was at the shearing house in the way, Jehu met with the brethren of Ahaziah, king of Judah, and said, who are ye? And they answered, we are the brethren of Ahaziah, and we go down to salute the children of the king and the children of the queen. And he said, take them alive. And they took them alive and slew them at the pit of the shearing house, even 42 men. Neither left he any of them. All right. So I guess they didn't get the memo. These Judites who were brothers and family of Ahaziah, I guess they didn't get the memo, because they said, look, we're here to visit, the king and all his family and stuff. They didn't know that the king been wiped out already, right? So, wrong place, wrong time. Verse 15. And when he was departing thence, he lighted on Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, coming to meet him. And he saluted him and said to him, is thy heart right, as my heart is with thy heart? So Jehu's like, you here for peace? And Jehonadab answered, it is. If it be, give me thy hand. And he gave him his hand, and he took him up to him into the chariot. And he said, come with me, and see my zeal for the Lord. So they made him ride in his chariot. And when he came to Samaria, he slew all that remained unto Ahab in Samaria, till he had destroyed him according to the according to the saying of the Lord which he spake to Elijah. All right, so Jehonadab said, look, I'm on your side, Jehu. I'll do whatever. I'm, down for whatever. Verse 18. Down to ride, as some people say. And Jehu gathered all the people together and said unto them, Ahab served Baal a little, but Jehu will serve him much. Right, so this is a plot to kill all the Baal worshippers. Now therefore call unto me all the prophets of Baal, all his servants and all his priests. Let none be wanting, for I have a great sacrifice to do to Baal. Whosoever shall be wanting, he shall not live. Right, so whoever's lacking, whoever is not present, they won't live. But Jehu did it in subtlety, to the intent that he might destroy the worshippers of Baal. And Jehu said, proclaim a solemn assembly for Baal. And they proclaimed it. And Jehu sent through all Israel. All the worshippers of Baal came, so that there was not a man left that came not. And they came into the house of Baal, and the house of Baal was full from one end to another. And he said unto him that was over the vestry, bring forth vestments for all the worshippers of Baal. And he brought them forth vestments. I'm pretty sure vestments are like garments. Let me see. Let's look at this real quick. Vestment. Yeah, robe. Yeah, it's a garment. And Jehu went and Jehonadab the son of Rechab into the house of Baal and said unto the worshippers of Baal, search and look that there be here with you none of the servants of the Lord, but worshippers of Baal only. And they went in to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings. And when they went in, when they went in to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings, Jehu appointed 80 men without, 80 men outside. That's what without means in this context. And said, if any of the men whom I have brought into your hands escape, he that letteth him go, his life shall be for the life of him. Right? So he said, don't let them leave. Don't let nobody escape. Don't let nobody leave. Verse 25. And it came to pass, as soon as he made an end of offering, the burnt offering, that Jehu said to the guard and to the captains, go in and slay them. Let none come forth. And they smote them with the edge of the sword. And the guard and the captains cast them out. And he went to the city of the house of Bel, where he's killed all of them. And they brought forth the images out of the house of Bel and burned them. And they break down the image of Bel and break down the house of Bel and made it a drought house unto this day. All right, so like a drought house would be like a sewer, essentially an outhouse, but like larger. Verse 28. Thus Jehu destroyed Baal out of Israel. You see that right there? So he was determined to get those Canaanite gods out of Israel. All right. Verse 29. Howbeit, from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, Jehu departed not from after them, to wit, the golden calves that were in Bethel and that were in Dan. You see that right there? So Jehu is the closest to a righteous king in the northern kingdom. I say that with confidence, that Jehu is the closest thing in the northern kingdom that we had to a righteous king. But since the foundation of the northern kingdom was founded upon the worship of these golden calves, Jehu, this is, generations and generations removed. So Jehu thinks he is serving the Lord by serving these golden calves, right? He's in idolatry. It's like a lot of people in Christianity who think they're serving the Lord, but they're in idolatry because of their practices, because of their customs, right? So it's a shame. It's a shame, really. Verse 30. And the Lord said unto Jehu, because thou hast done well in executing that which is right in mine eyes, and hast done unto the house of Ahab according to all that was in my heart, thy children of the fourth generation shall sit on the throne of Israel. All right, so, yeah. You see how merciful the Lord is, right? Even though Jehu was not all the way right, and we'll see in the next sentence how he didn't get all the way right, the Lord was still dealing with him. He said, look, I'll keep you around for 4 generations, but, you ain't all the way right. I can't establish your throne. Verse 31. But Jehu took no heed to walk in the law of the Lord God of Israel with all his heart, for he departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, which made Israel to sin. So the sons of the prophets, or possibly even Elisha, because he was still around at the time, told Jehu, look, you need to stop worshiping these calves. You need to worship the Lord in spirit and in truth. But, he didn't want to listen. All right, verse 32. In those days the Lord began to cut Israel short, and Hazael smote them in all the coast of Israel, from Jordan eastward, all the land of Gilead, the Gadites, the Reubenites, the Manassites, from Aroer, which is by the river Arnon, even Gilead and Bashan. Right, so this is where you see the Lord, bringing judgment and the curses upon the northern kingdom. It started with, here's Damascus. Here's where as it says right here, the Arameans. That's the Syrians. The Syrians are the Arameans. All right, they descend from Aram, the son of Shem. All right, but yeah, they took all this that's east, or rather they smote, I ain't gonna say they took it, but they smote all this that is east of the Jordan, right? That's where you have the Gadites, the Reubenites, and the Manassites, as was mentioned, right? Gilead being, or Aroer, I should say, Aroer. There's the city Aroer, but the land Aroer is like the land of Reuben. Gilead is split between Gad and, as you see right here, Gilead is split between Gad and Manasseh, and Bashan up here, you see, is in Manasseh. Just in case you didn't see, there's Bashan. All right, let's get back at it. It said even Gilead and Bashan. That's what they smoke. Haziel. Anyway, verse 34. Now the rest of the acts of Jehu and all that he did and all his might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? Again, I say this about every week because it's referenced just about every week. What we have in the Bible is the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah. We don't have the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. And that's not an invitation to go look for these books. There's a reason why they were left out, but just know that whenever the Bible makes reference to the Chronicles of the kings of Israel, we don't have that. We have the Chronicles of the kings of Judah. All right. Verse 35. And Jehu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria. And Jehoahaz his son reigned in his stead. We read this all the time in the Kings and the Chronicles. I don't know if I've ever explained it. Slept with his fathers means he died. Right? He went to be with the ancestors, as some people may say today. They buried him in Samaria, and Jehoahaz his son reigned in his stead. And the time that Jehu reigned over Israel and Samaria was 28 years. Right, so Jehu already had an accomplished military life before he even took the throne, and then he reigned for another 28 years. So the Lord was clearly dealing with him to a certain extent, but not to the extent of him actually being a righteous king. He still fell short of that mark. Yeah, we'll read Adaliah. We'll read the whole situation with Adaliah. I don't want to read it in the Kings though, because it goes into a little bit more detail in the Chronicles. So because that's about Judah, and the Kings is about Israel and Judah. So where was this at? Is it 21? Nope. Chapter. Okay, so I'll read, because we already read about the alliance between Ahaziah and Jehoram. So we'll read, starting with verse 8, because we just read this, but just to get a little recap. 2 Chronicles 22 and 8. And it came to pass that when Jehu was executing judgment upon the house of Ahab, and found the princes of Judah and the sons of the brethren of Ahaziah that ministered to Ahaziah, he slew them. Right? We read about that whenever the Judites were in the wrong place, wrong time. Right? And he sought Ahaziah, and they caught him, for he was hid in Samaria, and brought him to Jehu. And when they had slain him, they buried him, because, said they, he is the son of Jehoshaphat, who sought the Lord with all his heart. So the house of Ahaziah had no power to keep still the kingdom. Right? They didn't have no power to keep Ahaziah alive. And we did read that they shipped him back to Jerusalem, so that he could be buried in the sepulchre, because he's the son of Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat was a righteous king, for the most part. His alliance with the northern kingdom is kind of what got Ahaziah in the situation in the first place. But verse 10, let's keep reading. But when Adaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal of the house of Judah. All right, so she knew that she would only be queen if she killed all of her, all of the seed royal, as it says here, that if she killed all of her sons and, the royal family. Verse 11. Her grandchildren and stuff. But Jehoshabeth, the daughter of the king, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons that were slain, and put him and his nurse in a bedchamber. So Jehoshabeth, the daughter of the king Jehoram, the wife of Jehoiada the priest, for she was the sister of Ahaziah. She was the sister of Ahaziah, said, I'm going to keep my nephew safe. That's what she did. This is a righteous sister here. Hid him from Adaliah, so that she slew him not. And he was with them hid in the house of God 6 years. And Adaliah reigned over the land, right, for those 6 years that they were hiding this child in the temple. All right? That's wow. Because you do have all these kind of hidden passageways and all these different hidden chambers and stuff in the temple, if you read the description. But to hide a child there for 6 years is pretty wild, pretty nuts. All right. Verse 1. And in the 7th year, Jehoiada strengthened himself and took the captains of hundreds, Azariah the son of Jeroam, and Ishmael the son of Jehohanan, and Azariah the son of Obed, and Maaseiah the son of Adiah, and Elishaphat, the son of Zikri, into covenant with him. Excuse me with these names. I'm trying. And they went about in Judah and gathered the Levites out of all the cities of Judah and the chief of the fathers of Israel, and they came to Jerusalem. And all the congregation made a covenant with the house, or with the king, in the house of God. And he said unto them, Behold, the king's son shall reign, as the Lord hath said of the sons of David. This is the thing that ye shall do. A third part of you entering on the Sabbath of the priests and of the Levites shall be porters of the doors. Porters like a bouncer. And a third part shall be at the king's house, and a third part at the gate of the foundation. And all the people shall be in the courts of the house of the Lord. But let none come into the house of the Lord save the priests, and they that minister of the Levites. They shall go in, for they are holy. But all the people shall keep the watch of the Lord. Right. So he said, look, we got to keep this under wraps. You can't let nobody into the temple who ain't supposed to be there, who we do not approve. Right. And we're going to anoint this child to be king so that we can stop the wicked reign of Adaliah. All right. Verse 7. And the Levites shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapons in his hand, and whosoever else cometh into the house, he shall be put to death. But be ye with the king when he cometh in and when he goeth out. Verse 8. So the Levites and all Judah did according to all things that Jehoiada the priest had commanded, and took every man his men that were to come in on the Sabbath, with them that were to go out on the Sabbath, for Jehoiada the priest dismissed not the courses. Right, so they still kept up the priestly duties. Moreover, Jehoiada the priest delivered to the captains of hundreds spears and bucklers and shields that had been King David's, which were in the house of God. Right, so they took the old shields from from the vaults, right, and give them to all these men, all these captains, right. And he set all the people, every man having his weapon in his hand, from the right side of the temple to the left side of the temple, along by the altar and the temple by the king round about. Then they brought out the king's son, and put upon him the crown, and gave him the testimony, and made him king. And Jehoiada and his sons anointed him, and said, God save the king. Right? So they just anointed the king. You gotta think, this woman right here, this Northern Kingdom woman, right, would be a Latina these days, ruling over the so-called blacks because of her intermarrying and the alliance that was formed with Ahab, and now she's power hungry, she's a tyrant. So they're trying to keep all this under wraps and call the people together, but also protect the child, right? So that they can anoint him in front of everybody, so that there are witnesses to the anointing of this child to be king. But they're trying to do it without giving anything away, right? Verse 12. Now when Adaliah heard the noise of the people running and praising the king, she came to the people into the house of the Lord. And she looked, and behold, the king stood at his pillar at the entering in, and the princes and the trumpets by the king. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and sounded with trumpets. Also the singers, with instruments of music, and such as taught to sing praise. Then Adaliah rent her clothes and said, Treason! Treason! Of course, she's crying out treason, but what she did was treason. She's the one who killed all the heirs to the throne so that she could be queen. All they're doing is establishing what was right in the first place, and that is the lineage of David on the throne. She's not even of the lineage of David. But since she intermarried into that position, now she thinks she can be queen. All right, verse 14. Then Jehoiada the priest brought out the captains of hundreds that were set over the host, and said unto them, Have her forth of the ranges, and whoso followeth her, let him be slain with the sword. Right, so take her out. For the priest said, Slay her not in the house of the Lord. Right, so don't get blood on the holy things. Take her out, kill her, and any of her followers. All right. So they laid hands on her, and when she was come to the entering of the horse gate by the king's house, they slew her there. Right? So they took her all the way to the king's house from the temple. All right. Verse 16, and Jehoiada made a covenant between him and between all the people and between the king that they should be the Lord's people. Then all the people went to the house of Baal and break it down and break his altars and his images in pieces and slew Mattan the priest of Baal before the altars. Also Jehoiada appointed the officers of the house of the Lord by the hand of the priests, the Levites, whom David had distributed in the house of the Lord to offer the burnt offerings of the Lord, as it is written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and with singing, as it was ordained by David. Right, so Moses gave the courses of the sacrifice in the tabernacle, right? David applied that to the temple, right? Whereas the tabernacle was stationary, or was non-stationary, I should say. Whereas the tabernacle was mobile. That was like the whole idea of the tabernacle. It could be moved while we was wandering in the desert, right? The temple was stationary. So the courses had to change a bit, but as it was established, as it was ordained by David. That's why it says that. Also, David ordained like singers and things like that Moses didn't. Verse 19. And he set the porters at the gates of the house of the Lord, that none which was unclean in anything should enter in. And he took the captains of hundreds and the nobles and the governors of the people and all the people of the land. I do want to point out, because I forgot to mention, up here where it says like princes, where does it say princes? Yes, the princes. Right, the king was a little child at this time. He didn't have sons. The princes that it was talking about was like nobles, right? And that's what it says down here. That's what reminded me of it, where it says, yeah, the nobles and the governors of the people. And all the people of the land had brought down the king from the house of the Lord, and they came through the high gate into the king's house and set the king upon the throne of the kingdom. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet after that they had slain Athaliah with the sword. All right. So we'll read this about Joash. We'll finish it on this chapter. Verse 1. Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Zebiah of Beersheba. And Joash did that which was right in the sight of the Lord all the days of Jehoiada the priest. Notice it says that. It does not say that he did right all the days of his life. He did right while Jehoiada was around, because Jehoiada is the one who established him, made him king. Jehoiada was the one who wanted to set the kingdom right in the eyes of the Lord. All right. Verse 4. And it came to pass after this that Joash was minded to prepare the house of the Lord. And he gathered together the priests and the Levites and said to them, Go out unto the cities of Judah and gather of all Israel money to repair the house of your God from year to year, and see that ye hasten the matter. Howbeit the Levites hastened it not. And the king called for Jehoiada the chief and said unto him, Why hast thou not required of the Levites to bring in out of Judah and out of Jerusalem the collection, according to the commandment of Moses the servant of the Lord, and of the congregation of Israel, for the tabernacle of witness? For the sons of Athaliah, that wicked woman, had broken up the house of God, and also all the dedicated things of the house of the Lord did they bestow unto Baalim. He said, Look, we got to repair the breaches in the house of the Lord, right? And Jehoiada's an old man at this time, right? So he's kind of slacking off too. So you had Joash here. He's like, look, we got to get this done, right? If we don't do it, who's going to do it? All right, verse 8. And at the king's commandment, they made a chest and set it without at the gate of the house of the Lord outside, right? That's what without means in this context. And they made a proclamation through Judah and Jerusalem to bring into the Lord the collection that Moses, the servant of God, laid upon Israel in the wilderness, right? So that's what Moses established, a certain tax, if you want to call it that. It's more like a tribute. It's an offering that you had to bring. And so they said the same thing up here. In Moses' days, they needed it to form the first like vessels, the first like they'd like smelt down the metal and make things with it, and that's what they were doing here. All right. And all the princes and all the people rejoiced and brought in and cast into the chest until they had made an end. Now it came to pass that at what time the chest was brought into the king's office by the hand of the Levites, and when they saw that there was much money, the king's scribe and the high priest's officer came and emptied the chest and took it and carried it to his place again. Thus they did day by day and gathered money in abundance, right? So they're using this money to mend. Oh, I was about to say it. And I did not mean to do that. Come on now. Oh no. Oh no. There we go. Verse 12. And the king and Jehoiada gave it to such as did the work of the service of the house of the Lord, and hired masons and carpenters to repair the house of the Lord, and also such as wrought iron and brass to mend the house of the Lord. Right? So they're using this money. They're not just taking the money for themselves. They're using it to pay people who are actually going to fix the house of the Lord. Right? So, I mean, I know we get on churches about collecting money. But money is just a tool, right? And if you're using that as a tool for yourself by selfish means, then, that's wicked. But if you're using that as a tool to help the people, help the congregation, help the house of the Lord in this case, then, all praises to the Most High for that thing. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. So the workmen wrought, and the work was perfected by them, and they set the house of God in his state and strengthened it. And when they had finished it, they brought the rest of the money before the king and Jehoiada, whereof were made vessels for the house of the Lord. Right? So the rest of the money, they smelted it down and made it, made vessels, whether it be cups or bowls or spoons, forks, spoons, things like that. All right. Whereof were made vessels up for the house of the Lord, even vessels to minister and to offer withal, and spoons and vessels of gold and silver. And they offered burnt offerings in the house of the Lord continually all the days of Jehoiada. Verse 15. But Jehoiada waxed old, and was full of days when he died. 130 years old was he when he died. 130. It's crazy. And they buried him in the city of David among the kings, because he had done good in Israel, both toward God and toward his house. And obviously the Lord had blessed him with length of days. Now after the death of Jehoiada came the princes of Judah and made obeisance to the king. Then the king hearkened unto them. And they left the house of the Lord God of their fathers, and served groves and idols. And wrath came upon Judah and Jerusalem for this their trespass. It's something that I don't really understand. I mean, I guess once you lose that person connecting you to God, you can go off. I've seen things like that happen before, but it doesn't make too much sense to me, especially in this case of Joash. And he's seen, all that has happened in his life, and he still goes off like this. I don't get it. Anyway, verse 19. Yet he sent prophets to them to bring them again unto the Lord. And they testified against him, but they would not give ear. All right, so the Lord sent him prophets to say, Joash, what are you doing, man? Turn back to the Lord. But he wouldn't hear. Verse 20. And the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah the son of Jehoiada the priest, which stood above the people, and said unto them, Thus saith God, Why transgress ye the commandments of the Lord, that ye cannot prosper? Because ye have forsaken the Lord, he hath also forsaken you. And a lot of people don't really understand that if you forsake God, he will forsake you too. It's a connection, right? And I ain't talking about a personal relationship, because I hate when people say that, but there really needs to be that connection. It has to be grown over time, right? And you can't count on the works that you've done in the past to keep your good graces with the Lord, right? But yeah, God loves those who love him. If you forsake him, he's going to forsake you too. Verse 21. And they conspired against him and stoned him with stones at the commandment of the king in the court of the house of the Lord, right? So they threw rocks until dead Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada. Jehoiada, who saved, he was instrumental in saving. He wasn't technically the one who saved his aunt was technically the one who saved him. But Jehoiada, the man who was instrumental in crowning Joash king in the first place, they killed his son. Verse 22. Thus Joash the king remembered not the kindness which Jehoiada his father had done to him, but slew his son. And when he died, he said, The Lord look upon it and require it. Right, so even Joash knew, man, I done messed up big time. Verse 23. Actually, this may be talking about Zechariah, said that with his last breath. But anyway, verse 23. And it came to pass at the end of the year, right, so this is very recent to what he had just done, that the host of Syria came up against him, and they came to Judah and Jerusalem, and destroyed all the princes of the people from among the people, and sent all the spoil of them unto the king of Damascus, right? Took all their money, all their goods, to Damascus. For the army of the Syrians came with a small company of men, and the Lord delivered a very great host into their hand, because they had forsaken the Lord God of their fathers, so they executed judgment against Joash. All right, so it didn't even take a lot of Syrians. It just took some, because the Lord was not dealing with Judah at this point, because of Joash. And when they were departed from him, for they left him in great diseases, his own servants conspired against him for the blood of the sons of Jehoiada the priest, and slew him on his bed, and he died. And they buried him in the city of David, and they buried him not in the sepulchre of the kings. They said, look, you went off, you don't even get to be buried with the kings. And these are they that conspired against him: Zabad, the son of Shimeath, and Ammonitis, and Jehozabad, the son of Shimrith, a Moabitess. All right, so these what would be called mixed brothers, right? Verse 27. Now concerning his sons and the greatness of the burdens laid upon him, and the repairing of the house of God, behold, they're written in the story of the book of the kings. And Amaziah his son reigned in his stead. All right, so we'll pick up. Probably be back in the Kings, since we kind of jumped over from Kings to Chronicles this week. We'll probably be back in the Kings next week. All right. Pick up with the lineage of Jehu, and I think the death of Elisha next week. So stay tuned for that. Lord's will, we'll make it there. I hope you learned something. With that, I say shalom. Most High in Christ bless.